All right. Welcome to reInvent, guys. I'm Arash Marzban. I'm the head of product at Armor. My focus is on leading the vision and strategy at Armor for our cloud compute security platform, if that makes sense. So what we thought we'd talk about today is actually diving into the view of full stack security for public cloud and how important and innovative that can be when you leverage cloud native tools, you leverage all of the cool stuff that's out there. So without any further ado, we'll just jump into it. Awesome. So we know that the changes or the way that we've done security in the past just doesn't work anymore. And I've got some really cool data that I want to share with everyone that helps allude to that fact. And then we'll go through sort of some of the cool public cloud tools that you can leverage, the fact that you can't use old, these old tools to support sort of a legacy SOC model, so that all has to change as well. And of course, the most important part, which is making sense of the data and information that you can get from public cloud. So we're going to dive into that. Should be a lot of fun. So we know that the old pathway, the way that we've been doing security for years and years and years, won't work. Public cloud has revolutionized the way that we should approach security and solve for those problems altogether. And we know that it won't work because the data tells us so. So let me show you some of my favorite stats. So we saw at Armor, over the past year, almost a 50% increase in attacks across the board, right? We saw ransomware attacks jump by 36%. 4 out of 5 enterprises are pretty much confident that they're going to have a cyber attack this year. And of course, malware is being developed at an amazing rate, right? And of course, web app attacks. That's massive, right? That is the cloud marketplace. Every user, everyone at this conference is someone who's passionate about what you can do leveraging public cloud platforms. And you know that as you move the solution up the stack and your focus is on applications, that means the risk continues to grow, and of course, the attacks grow there too. And at Armor, we did an amazing study that I thought was super cool, which was around how we look at honeypots in public cloud, right? And we know that the moment you put a system out there, the community, let's call them the hackers, are out figuring out what they can do and how they can leverage or get into your environment within 2 minutes. And we did this across the board. This is a constant thing that we run because we want to understand how threats unfold in public cloud. And so we've seen that within 2 minutes of the system being launched, you're potentially under threat. So super interesting, right? So let me touch on a few others. We also know that there's a massive cost to doing cybersecurity or not doing it well, right? And even though the direct costs of cybersecurity are typically less than 5% from a bottom line standpoint from a company, we also know that there is a massive brand reputation impact that 90% of the companies call it market potential or view in market when an attack unfolds. So it's critical. It's a dollar value figure across the board. And we know that security in the way that we've been doing it hasn't been working. It hasn't been effective because if you look at the OWASP top 10 over the past several years, they haven't changed, right? The infrastructure environment has changed. The way that we develop applications and deploy has changed. The way that environments have now become much more hybrid in their nature. All of that's changed, but the attack types have not. They've been uniform across the board. And what that tells us is that whatever we have been doing for years and years and years isn't that effective, right? But we have an incredible opportunity with the adoption of cloud and how that's grown over the past several years to really begin using those tools to our advantage, right? And that's one of the first steps, right? Let me talk about the life of a company. So we're going to use Acme Corp in this case. And Acme Corp, back, let's say 2013, hey, they were a brick and mortar company. Their biggest concern was IP theft. Don't steal my secrets and what I'm building so that you can't, I'm successful in market. They had worries about some 0 days and vulnerabilities. They had a couple of tools mixed between security and InfoSec or security tools. However, that company's evolved. So now we look at Acme today. So this is now, Acme's evolved. They've brought in folks to help them build their public cloud strategy. They've deployed solutions there. They've become much more of a SaaS-driven company, right? They're focused on scale. They're focused on leveraging all the tool sets that are available to them to do the things that their company needs to do. And in that same mode, sort of the threat has moved, right? So they've become a hybrid company. They have multiple environments they're managing. They are looking at different security threats, such as ransomware, as we've seen that grow massively over the past several years. And their tool stack has grown exponentially as well. So we know that they've added security tools, they've added IT tools. So most companies today operate on an average of 75 plus tools across their IT and security teams. Imagine trying to get context from that many different tools and then orchestrating activity across all of them. It's pretty much ultimately impossible. So let me tell you what we think and what I think the future begins to look like. So 5 years from now, that the same company is, instead of being worried about being SaaS-driven, is now worried about the data, right? The data to operate their business, the data to make good business decisions, the data to scale, all of those become the primary component. Their brand reputation becomes a primary focal point. Their threats have changed and evolved in that time. And ultimately, they know that by having 75 unique tools in their environment, they can't be successful. So they're looking for a simplified or a unified approach to solve that problem. And the approach there is simple. The first thing is, one of the reasons I think everyone is at this trade show is that we think that there is incredible potential in the continuing innovation inside Amazon. And so when you look at the tools that are developed and the tools that you can leverage just at a basic level as you're building a new application or deploying, there is a ton of security built into the Amazon, call it ecosystem, that you can just leverage in your deployments today, right? So I can leverage Macy, understanding the context and information from my data, allowing it to auto-tag, and then I can go to the other side and I can use my guard duty information and subscribe to an intelligence feed that helps me understand what's going on in my environment. I can accumulate or manage all of that data through CloudWatch, CloudTrail, bring that back into my platform so that I've got, again, context of what's going on in my environment, and I can leverage it. So I can stitch all of these together, and I can stitch them in a way that helps me deliver security to my infrastructure and my teams, because ultimately one of the things that I think we see day to day is that companies have sort of silos between between an IT team, between a security team, and between a DevOps team. But the amazing part is that all of these teams are actually working on the same platform. Their jobs are combined. At the end of the day, your security team, your IT team, and your DevOps team are working and effectively leveraging and using the same platform to do something for the company, right? To do something for the business, for the passion and vision inside that organization. And so when you tie in the tools and help satisfy security need, and you tie in that into sort of your CDCI chain, and you're deploying and you're automatically leveraging the tools that are there, tagging your environment, having context there, it becomes a pretty big component. And that use of the tools helps us fill in those gaps that exist today. And not everyone does a great job trying to fill in those gaps, leveraging Amazon's native tools. And it's a great start. So everyone that's hasn't been doing it should start doing that today, because you can automate all of it. It's all in one console. That's the beauty of Amazon, right? And you can write to it, you can automate it. And so we know as a security company, because Armor is a security-focused company, that there is more to come, right? Which is, that's step one. Public cloud has given us an incredible suite of tools to use to be able to execute security effectively. However, you've always got to make a decision. Do you want to figure out what to do after it's happened to someone else, or do you want to figure out what you should be doing tomorrow before it happens so that you can lead and you can prevent threats to your company? And obviously, public cloud has enabled a number of amazing things, right? Which is you're deploying infrastructure as code, it's automated. You're doing multiple deployments a day, so uniformity and trying to manage complexity or variation between environments is a cornerstone. And those are the things that in the past, through either operational rigor or process inside a company from an IT change management or security management standpoint, have been around putting restrictors or guardrails on all of this. And what we think the companies or what people should be doing is focusing on leveraging the tools that you can from an automation standpoint, ignoring the fact that you have to have heavy process in place to control security, and allow the automation to drive that. Because again, you can deploy everything, you're doing it constantly, and the tools are there so that they're automatically wired up as you deploy your application or solution. And that eliminates the silos that cause what we see, the disconnect between security, IT, and DevOps, right? So what we do is understanding the context. So that's really what we feel is the key to security. It's not the tools, that's not the end value, because everyone can buy tools, everyone can deploy tools. So leverage what you have in public cloud, and then add context. Understand your environment. Consolidate those views, right? You're going to leverage the agility that you're gaining from public cloud so that your business can move quickly. And moving quickly means being able to automate and leverage all of that. And then those solutions that consolidate or help are the ones that you should be focused on. So if I can leverage Macy, get context for my data without having to build a lot of logic or call it work up front to ensure I understand what's going on, it becomes valuable. And then in that same breath is mixing all of these sort of solutions that bring you protection and detection into one layer become the critical next step. So let me talk about context, which is understanding the environment. That's really the most important thing, right? So knowing what applications you're running, what they're doing, who's accessing your environment, are sort of the cornerstone components for us as a company to be able to know, hey, what's going on? What's my application doing? Should Jim or Sally be interacting with it right now? And what should they be doing with it? And what are my users getting out of my app? And that context is really what's going to deliver security and not the tool set, right? So understanding how the teams are deploying and leveraging cloud, leveraging the DevOps playbook, obviously, so that it's automated and self-deployed, and then always assume change is a constant. We know that. In security, there's nothing other than change, right? The attack types stay the same, but they'll come from every direction, right? And so knowing that these are kind of the components, and then of course for that, our outcome is we want to know what's going on, not how it's happening. That's important secondarily, but the primary is what's going on in the environment so that we can help really ultimately secure an environment. That's around, again, context, users, what's happening, what the application is, what the outcome of the application is, what it's supposed to be delivering, what kind of data should be flowing, and how the user interacts with it. And so we have a view, which is old tools can do some great things, but they don't solve today's problems. And so when you have an environment that spans between public cloud as well as a hybrid on-prem or another data center, that your tool sets should be different between the environments, but the outcomes should not be different. Because ultimately you're going for a level of security that's uniform, that's predictable, that's stable across both environments. And so when you look at trying to leverage an old tool, it's okay not to. It is much, much better to leverage the tools that are built into public cloud and then bring that context and data out to a company or a solution or your own teams that can help provide the visibility or the understanding of what's supposed to be happening and why and how. So don't mix tools with outcomes. That's a really big component. And of course, we know that because if you go back and look at the data points that we had from the OWASP view, that those attack types haven't changed. So any checkbox solution, anything that just says, you know what, this is making me secure, I bought it, I put it in, that really doesn't actually solve the problem because we've seen the attack type stay consistent year over year. And this is why, right? You don't want to use the wrong tool for the job, right? You're trying to look for a solution. So our focus has been on full stack, right? And full stack means the ability to layer in the right pieces at every level. So let's start with one that I think is absolutely critical, and it's not on this list, but it is DevOps deployability. So solutions that can deliver a security outcome or a stack that can actually solve for security that can be leveraged as you're deploying code, right, without having to get in the way. As your environment scales, it's already there, are the ones that are going to be the most useful. Because again, like everything else, if you're not using it, it's not going to do anything for you. So simplicity is key in that regard. And so when we talk full stack in that sense, it's being able to put components in place that protect you. So there are amazing tool vendors out there, right? So you can use anti-malware, you can use file integrity monitoring. There's a number of different components. You can use public cloud tools. And those are the pieces that you can put in place to proactively protect your environment. That's good configuration management. Those fall under that umbrella. The next piece for us is looking at detection. So now that I've got the tools in place that are protecting you, they've been configured properly, I've set my environment up right, I'm managing my access controls effectively and applying a uniform policy across the board. Those are all the components that are critical. Now I'm going to look at what's variant, what's different, right? And that's where I leverage detection technology. So that's leveraging public cloud logs. That's leveraging on-prem or hybrid logs, bringing all of those together and looking across your entire ecosystem to say, what's my application supposed to be doing, and how does it deliver the value that my customers ultimately expect from me? And in that process is making sense of the data, because if you don't know what it is, you've just got a ton of data, then the value is minimal. So how do you help drive sense making? And for sense making, you're looking for trends. You're either leveraging machine learning or user behavior analytics to understand what are the perpetual or the patterns that I'm seeing in user A interacting with my application versus user B, or user A interacting with what data set, what are they pulling, what are they looking for, what's changing in that. And that's how you know something is abnormal, outside of course, the system interaction and what's going on. And none of this matters if you can't deliver or take action. And in order to take action, it's like everything else, right? So when you play sports, you've got a playbook. You know what you're going to go do because you know what's likely to happen. You put that playbook into place, and you're looking for an outcome that's focused on, now that I know what's happened or the uniqueness or the context of my environment, what action should I be taking to ultimately deliver effective security or a solution to my customers and to my business itself? And so without action, none of this matters. And in that process, you need playbooks, and you need context to build a good playbook. So I'm a Dallas guy. The Cowboys have some good playbooks and some bad ones, and that's really the difference between whether or not it's going to be a good weekend or a bad one in Dallas. So that's really the core component for us when you look at then how do you deliver all of these pieces to do something effective for you. So what does this all mean? Ultimately means don't rely on old technology, don't rely on old ways of doing security. Focus on leveraging the pieces that are there, the public cloud components, leveraging the fact that you may have two very distinct or unique environments and you need to do things differently across both. That's okay. And don't just plug tools in at every layer, so don't go buy 40 appliances to try to solve the problem. Instead, focus on understanding how each of the layers works and what it needs in order for you to be able to secure it effectively, because they're different. Being open to adopting new solutions and approaches, again, leveraging tools, solutions in that stack, and then bringing the resources you have together as a company are also pretty critical, right? So we talked about how important or how connected DevOps, IT, and the SOC, your teams need to be, and leveraging the resources and intelligence you have across your organization to ensure that you can deliver that, right? So using every resource means that the teams work in concert. And you can do that a multitude of ways. You can leverage tools to do it. You can use communication. You can go tap someone on the shoulder. Or you can automate all of it through your DevOps process and then add that next layer, which is sense making and context, to really get to the outcome that you're looking for. So we know that we've got to adapt and evolve through that process, mixing different ways of solving that security problem. And our approach has to do the exact same thing. And it is an amazing time, I think, certainly with the announcements that we're going to hear over the next few days coming from Amazon, as well as obviously the need to be able to do security effectively and leverage it and automate it becomes such a critical part of doing business that as these teams tie together, as DevOps, IT, security tie together and become one unit to delivering an application or value for a business, it's pretty important. So with that, I thank you guys for the opportunity to open the Pilvi Theater and talk about our view at Armor of cloud security and the amazing sort of change that we're going to continue seeing, or evolution that we're going to see in hybrid cloud and what's going to happen there. It's going to be pretty amazing. So thank you again. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arash. And if anyone would like to hang out with them at their booth, they are just down here to the left. It is booth number 3010, and they'll be happy to take any questions for you there. Thanks, everyone. We have another speaker coming up in about 10 minutes.